Okay, so I think I might be live at the moment. There's been a change made to how YouTube does this. So I'm just going to wait a second and see if I am in fact live, and whether or not anyone else turns up, because this was a little bit confusing to say the least. Good afternoon, Beck. Good afternoon. Is that interest? Have I been streaming on and off for the past 20 minutes or so? Just checking, because yeah, YouTube seemingly have got rid of the sort of the staging area for a live stream. So as soon as you're sending the feed to the website now, seemingly you're streaming, which is odd, because it means that like putting in the title, etc., has to happen unless you're very, very careful as you're streaming. Oh, it just pops up for me and says you've been live for less than 1 minute. Okay, interesting. I don't know. I'll have to see what other people's reactions are on Twitter to YouTube doing this, I think. Anyway, I'm here, and this afternoon I want to complete the weathering of a Saint Dismas Cross prop, which I got from Etsy. The link to this particular Etsy store is in the stream description below, and essentially what you get when you purchase this kit is an unpainted 3D printed version of Saint Dismas Cross from Uncharted 4. And so actually folks who have been following the live stream, so that's following me on Facebook, the Super View Facebook page, will have probably seen some of these photos that I put together, sort of charting my progress so far, at least with this make. Let's try and get the pop-up chat there. There we go. Cool. And the fact that you sort of start with something quite grey and dull like that, and then bit by bit I sort of decided how I was initially going to paint it. Saint Dismas himself, I mounted via his bottom, which my wife found hilarious. That I was essentially mounting this poor fella on a spike and spraying him gold. There are a couple of finishing little bits, finicky little bits that also had to be sprayed gold as well. And the cross itself was quite difficult to decide how to paint it in such a way that I could paint the whole thing and not have it damaged. So I decided to mount it via 2 holes in the cross section there, and hang it so that I could spray it with a matte black, which actually isn't particularly matte. It's really quite annoying, this matte black that I got. It was quite shiny, so I've had to do some work on that. Namely, starting with what I call the calculated risk of wire brushing the paint finish, and that was kind of effective. It sort of started to fight the lines of the print and create a bit of a wood grain effect on the cross. So I was quite pleased with that. And then obviously finishing some of the details with silvery paint, heating up Saint Dismas's arms with a blow dryer to get them to be able to fit over the cross was interesting. And of course taking a hacksaw to the thing so that I could fit in the secret message which is hidden inside the prop, resulted in this. So there he is on the cross, with the top now comes off. At one point, I was tempted to to make it so that the top of the cross sort of magneted to it, but that proved to be a bit awkward. And also, crucially, this is meant to be something which is not meant to be like a hidden access point. It's meant to be something that's been broken open to get at the message inside. So so I decided to leave it as that, as a broken piece. And this is where we're up to, really. Starting with the box like that. I'm now here where I've actually painted the back of the cross as well, and put in the lettering. Let's see, can we go, if we book, make that visible, make that, there we go. So now we have our overhead view here in the crafting area. Hopefully we're going to have a bit of fun this afternoon and finish off this cross in a way that continues to make it quite pleasing, quite in line with the spirit of the thing. And well, and here we are actually. This is the cross as it is at the moment. And you may well notice that I've also gone so far as to put a paint effect, painted an effect, sort of wood grain, almost as though the black paint of the cross is peeling off in places. There's a little bit there. I painted the edges of the lid with a slight wood grain effect as well, so it looks as though this hollow cross has been popped open. And really, what remains to be done here is just to tie it all together with a nice sort of weathered finish. Now then, let's have a quick look at at how things are going on the. Interesting. It's quite awkward. Doing this live stream via one screen. Okay. But hopefully it's still working. Yeah, so essentially I want to try and tie this together, and that's going to involve essentially dirtying it up and making it a bit more. You get the chat to your phone. Well, my phone today is actually being used as a webcam. Stream seems fine. That's good. That's good. So I'm just a bit. It's shaking me a little bit. That the whole beginning of this was not as it normally is. I don't know why YouTube's made that change, but yeah. But anyway, I'm quite happy with how it's going, and so far, in particular, I'm happy with the way that we're starting to really come away from this as a 3D printed item. I think the paint has really helped in sort of combating the print lines, and essentially what I want to do is weather this a little bit today, and also tie Dismas to his cross, because unlike a crucifix, Dismas was actually tied to his cross as opposed to nailed to it. But again, I'm also quite liking the way that the wood grain on the inside there, of the hole, again, just gives you that little, as they say, it sells it a little bit more than it just being a 3D print. This is the message inside. This comes with the kit as well. That today you will join me in paradise, I think, and then the birth and death date of Thomas Avery, the pirates who founded Libertalia in the game. And we're going to start this whole process today with, I think, a simple a simple wash, and for that I want to use this. It's called Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. I actually bought a double-sized bottle of it because you know, this is the sort of stuff that I'm going to use, or do use all the time in model painting, and a fairly large brush as well, because this is a fairly large model that we're doing today. And also I need some kitchen roll, crucially. There we go. Just to dry off any muck that may well accrue. There we go. Whew. So now the Agrax shade is quite brown, but what I'm hoping is that it will sort of add a sort of patina to, in particular, the gold of Saint Dismas here, because there's something about shiny gold paint that kind of, it combats in some ways and hides detail, especially, for example, the musculature of our poor saint. So by this sort of letting some of this stuff sit in the crevices and the cracks of the statue, of the figure, hopefully it'll become more obvious that, you know, where all these different parts of his body are, as opposed to being slightly sort of dazzled away in the gold. And so essentially I think I've taken this to more or less 90% of where I want it to be. It's just that sort of last 10%, which I think actually is where an awful lot of the magic is in this sort of paint job, because it's in that last 10% that the history of the thing, the story, dare I say, sort of comes together, and you start to get a cohesive whole object, as opposed to a series of small parts that you're sort of bringing together. So that's not too bad. Now, my only complaint about Agrax shade is that it's very watery, and so it tends to sort of bead and gather in a way that's not entirely pleasing. And so far, the only way I've found to really get around that problem is just to be very liberal and just let the colour do what it will and go where it will. There we go. So I think bit by bit we're slightly improving it. Now this the lamp I've got here, it's a daylight lamp, but it's got quite a glare there, hasn't it? Let's see. Maybe that. There we go. That'll do. That'll do for now. What's else there? It's still quite dark actually there. Cool. And so really the goal is just to make it seem a little bit as though it's been through the wars, it's seen a bit of life. And the thing is, it's interesting actually, because when you look at the obviously there were two Dismas Cross props in Uncharted 4 in the game. One of them is the one that Nathan gets from the prison cell at the beginning of the game, almost a prologue to the story. And then the other one is the one that's for sale in the auction, where they have an auction heist. And the one from the prison actually ends up in Nathan's private collection. Cassie, in the epilogue to the game, their daughter comes across it, and that one had details like the paint coming off the cross and the wood showing through, whereas the one as well, and that one, sorry, was broken at the bottom, so the bottom was missing, and they realised that they were missing a message inside. Hence the need to go and find a more complete one in the auction. Now the one in the auction seems to have been looked after a bit more, and so actually the paint wasn't really missing from the cross in the same way that it is on this one, or as I painted it here. And that is the one that they break open at the top and find the message hidden inside. But I quite liked the look of the weathered Saint Dismas Cross, so that's why I've decided to go down that route and to imply paint flakes coming away from the black and revealing the wood below. And and the thing is, this is my Saint Dismas Cross in that sense. This is not necessarily either of the ones in the game, is it? So it's got its own story. It's had its own strange history, and what I find interesting about it as an artifact is that it's an invitation, obviously to then begin the quest to get to Libertalia, as Nathan realizes in Scotland the pirates were recruiting, and so they were must have been sending out crosses all over the place, all over the world, to different potential recruits. So this could be just one of those hundreds or even thousands of crosses that were sent out. Just need to, I suppose, whatever it is that I decide to do in this, just kind of so long as I don't feel as though it's something that's completely unjustifiable. Just believe in it, believe in myself, and believe in the story that I'm trying to tell with my paint job, I guess. Like I say, it's a very rough brush that I'm using, but I've deliberately gone for a brutal, not brutal, a clumsy application of the colour, just because I want it to be, well, actually almost oily. When I was looking for the right colour combinations, I did come across there's a modeller's paint that I think it's used primarily for painting train sets, etc. That's actually for oil on brass, and that did intrigue me as a possibility. But I don't know, it had like a gloss finish to it, which I didn't particularly like, so I decided just to go with the Agrax earth shade. And actually, in that sense, now not only do I want it to be on Saint Dismas, but also actually, really, the whole thing needs to be dirtied up and start to have the layers of grime applied to it. It's interesting that this thing of 3D printing. On the one hand, I would love to be able to 3D print myself. Well, not 3D print myself, but 3D print for myself. But on the other hand, there's something about the quality of 3D printing that it's not quite, especially at sort of consumer level, it's not quite there yet when it comes to that sort of organic, dare I say, quality of made objects. And so, I mean, on this one, it's far from perfect. The print lines on Dismas are evident, no matter what I do. And yes, I could have spent a bit more time sanding and preparing it, but actually there are spaces on the head where if I'd done much more in the way of filing and sanding, it would have broken through into the cavity inside, and I definitely didn't want to do that. So yeah, I like, I love that this is available via a kit, and that I've been able to have the privilege of putting this together myself and making all these decisions. But in some ways, I think if I had the time and the money, something that I would like to do, that I would love to do, would be to sort of to make something like this out of wood, and the money element really comes into the sculptor, sculpting and moulding that sculpture of a figure like this Saint Dismas figure. Presumably, I'd have to what's the word? I'd have to commission an artist to do that. But if I win the lottery, then yes, I'll definitely either commission an artist or I'll learn the skills myself. Go on a course or something. I'll just grab a wee bit more kitchen roll. So funny setting up the stream in this space, and also actually realizing suddenly that I don't have to be wearing earphones, because I'm not playing a computer game or anything. That was quite liberating. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, there's a bit of dark. It's accumulated just there on the head, so let's spread it around a bit. There we go. Now then, let me just check. Check the computer. There we go. Cool. Right, so let's move on to this side now. It's one of those things where I really wanted to do. Initially, I was thinking I wanted to do the whole build and the whole paint job on a live stream, but really it's been a lot. It's been hours and hours of painting and then waiting and painting, decision making, and one day I'll get it right. I'll have just the perfect project to start with, start and end in a live stream. But for today, it's simply best to, or it seemed to be best to sort of to do the weathering on this cross instead. It's so funny. My lovely wife. Yes, the wash has made a big difference already, hasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Do you know? It's also it's going to sound really weird, but it's also really unnerving not having a second screen when I'm streaming, because on the second screen normally I can see the stream data and the so on and so forth. The chat, etc. Whereas I'm having to take a lot on faith that that everything's still working. There we go. It's so funny as well how relatively quickly 3D printing has become such an accessible consumer grade product. I mean, I suppose these at the moment the really high end 3D printing possibilities are 3D printing in metal, aluminium and forms of steel. So at some point, you'll be able to 3D print custom parts for a vehicle, this kind of thing. You'd love a 3D printer, would love to print your model of the HMS Surprise. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be very cool. Yeah. I mean, presumably I must have mentioned at some point that that my dad built a model of the Victory, and the Victory is quite a common subject for modelers to do. It was existing quite happily in long after he had passed away in my room, and then one day my mum sort of knocked it off the top of the wardrobe, and it smashed on the floor. It's a real shame. Now I have a mini version of the Victory in the office that I want to put together. Maybe that's the project, because that hopefully will be able to do that maybe in a 2 or 3 hour stream. That could be fun. Yeah, possibly. The real issue with doing these patches of wood though on this cross was trying not to make it too regular. It's really hard to draw, paint, model, sculpt irregularity. And real life weathering and damage. Sometimes what happens in nature can look so skewed that it looks as though it almost looks wrong, because it's not as balanced as you would like it as a human being. So yeah, I try to just think about where it would have been knocked and bashed over time. You've hit a wall with that model, as you can't find the reference for the internal hull. I want it to be accurate, but without reference it's hard. Yeah, I can imagine. You mentioned Dad's Victory before. Okay, yeah, fair enough, sorry. But it was great you visited the ship yourself a few years ago. That's quite canny. That's quite cool. Yeah, going to see the Victory, that would be something else as well. That would be well worth doing. Now, something that I'm reluctant to do is to I'm reluctant to get out a hairdryer in this stream, because I don't want the noise to. So I might have to let poor Dismas here just rest a sec and dry out a little bit. I mean, that's one of the good things about these paints, is that they do dry relatively quickly. So there we go. Gluing on the two sides of the cross was a little bit of a challenge, actually, because on the let's see if we go back to our browser here, on the in the kit, in the original kit, you had the two arms that were very much, well, actually, I mean, the whole thing was in two pieces, but then the arms were very much in separate pieces, which were, I could see why they'd been printed as such, but in terms of creating a mechanically stable connection to the center, those thin arms were quite a challenge. And what I ended up doing in order to achieve that was I ended up essentially running some pieces of wire through the inside of the cross to try and give it something just to rest on while the glue was drying. And it's had this weird side effect where it's actually given the cross this kind of rattling. So as you pick it up, it feels like there's more to it. I quite like that effect, actually. It's a good sort of implication of what's going on inside. There we go. Did they have any inserts to slide into the back of the cross? No, there were no inserts. I mean, obviously there was the note that you can roll up and put inside, but there was nothing mechanically to try and make the cross more stable. Which, I mean, again, that's one of the things about this is like a garage kit or something, or some other thing that you might buy from an enthusiastic maker at home. That to a certain extent, part of the joy of the thing is solving some of those problems for yourself, I guess. So, but it did mean that, especially when I was when I was hair drying Dismas's arms to bend them over the back of the cross, that I was really nervous about him just breaking and bending it, because the last thing I wanted was for it to look as though he was sort of you know, like bending the cross around his back. And at one point there was a very real risk of that happening. So again, a bit of patience, a bit of thinking, a bit of sort of careful application of glue and paint and those wires inside, and I think we managed to make something that looks quite solid. And and other people who have bought this kit have reviewed it with a picture of the finished thing on Etsy. And so what I want to do before I review it is to finish it, and to finish it to a fairly good standard, if I do say so myself. So people go, oh my goodness, look at what's possible. No, actually, in hindsight, I think one of the well, no, not in hindsight, but in another world, I suppose a good type of paint to use on this sort of thing would be an oil-based paint instead of a water paint. So I'm using water paints. I have seen in my recent trips to Hobbycraft, etc., some gloss-based paints. But something oily, literally oily, could have worked quite well, I think, to achieve some of the stuff that I'm going for here. But the key thing is not letting the dark stuff gather too much in one or two key places. So one of his eyes there was particularly pooling. I didn't want that. We don't want that. Also under there, actually, it was pooling just here. But yes, my lovely wife, she was both tickled and horrified that I mounted Dismas via his backside on the painting setup. Okay, so let's do a little bit of wiping this down, shall we? That's one of the, obviously dry brushing is a way of achieving a lot of this sort of stuff. Just painting on very dry bits of, so paint from a very dry brush, so that only the very raised parts of your piece actually receive paint. And you can achieve something similar by painting on quite thoroughly, and then essentially wiping off excess as well. Yeah, I think this is starting to look like something. It's a little bit tacky though. Tacky to the touch, that is, not tacky as in gaudy. I mean, that's the point of lots of devotional medieval Catholic type things. Is to have a visual impact. That is to say, something that looks opulent. Have you ever examined anything which might be this old in real life? I have. Yes, I have. On multiple occasions, actually. Let me think. When I was at university, I spent a lot of time exploring the library and the archives, etc. at Durham Cathedral, and they have some very old books there which are finished beautifully in terms of their covers. And there were a few reliquaries and things like that you can ask to get your hands on in some museums that I've been to for research purposes. But I suppose, I mean, there's also, it's one of the things where I have and I haven't, in so much as often you can't just pick up something like, you know, so if this was a real, you know, 1700s, 16, yeah, 1700s cross, then you'd probably have to use pH neutral gloves and all this kind of thing, so you weren't introducing fingerprint grease and other contaminants into the artifact. One of my favourite pieces, though, that I've ever handled was a pocket watch. It was a very, very elegant, gentle little pocket watch, which had been apparently donated to the, oh, was it the county, or was it the university, or was it the a body in Durham anyway had received this pocket watch, and it was delightful. Apparently it would still work if you wound it, but they didn't wind it because they didn't want to risk damaging it. So that's quite, you know, that's also actually, I suppose, quite pertinent as well, isn't it? Knowing what this stuff should look and feel like, it probably gives me a bit of an insight when it comes to painting it. So it's almost dry. Still that's the slight tackiness going on. And the last thing I want is to introduce too much of a gloss, too much of a gloss to it. So I kind of want to let it dry and then introduce, well, a bit more of that, where's it gone? Oh, maybe some very dry brushed acrylic. I've got some black acrylic here. That could work, actually. Let's see. So suddenly gone very dark outside. Might be about to a thunderstorm. You love really old books. The perfect handwriting, illustrations are amazing to look at. Imagine if we spent as long as they did writing out our emails. Do you know, it's yeah, absolutely. And it's writing, it's even getting dressed in the morning. You know, these days, I'm absolutely guilty of that. I'm just wearing a t-shirt and trousers today, as I do most days. But you know, wearing clothes that reflect your status in life, or your job, your respect, you know, for other people as well, in getting dressed a certain way every day, is something which we don't really seem to do. We don't do anymore. Not really. I remember seeing, when I worked at the Orvik Viking Centre, we would sometimes have groups come round from you know, from Bradford and other places, basically cities which were close to York, but which had much more of a larger ethnic minority population. And it was always wonderful seeing how so many women would turn up in really long, gorgeous saris, and what was interesting is that, so I was dressed as a, you know, often I would be dressed as a Viking when people were coming round, and I once had this an Indian woman. She was actually on holiday from India. She came up to me and she said, "It must be difficult, you know, getting dressed like that every day." In so much as, you know, the Vikings, you had 3 or 4 different layers and stages to your clothing, this kind of thing. You barely left your jogging bottom since lockdown started. Yep. I can relate to that. You know, so she was right. It did take a lot more effort to get dressed on those days when you're being a Viking than on those days when you weren't. But I kind of just went, but look at what you're wearing. You're in that sense, you're wearing beautiful clothing, and you're really sort of, in that sense, you know, it's a feast for the eyes. It's a statement of of self-respect and also respect for and I don't know, you're sort of telegraphing your role in life and how you see the world around you as well through the complex clothing that if someone wants to chooses to wear that. And she kind of didn't really see it. She was like, oh yeah, but this is just what I wear every day, you know. And I found that so interesting. But I suppose in a very similar way, you know, people have walked away from wearing top hats and fedoras and all sorts of other items of clothing in Western society, which, you know, even, I don't know, what, in the 1960s, 1970s would have been relatively common. I found that really interesting. So we've really dirtied him down, haven't we? Let's just have a look at. Yeah. The thing is, I don't want to overdo it either. That's the thing. Maybe the trick is going to be doing it to this sort of depth, so on his legs as well, and then maybe running a gold permanent marker over some of the raised parts of his body. That might help. Sort of bring it back up again as well. Because yes, I want it to look grimy and used, but I don't want it to look absolutely filthy, you know. Speaking of absolutely filthy, I'm really happy to report that I've instigated that hotkey for live streaming on my PC, and what it basically does is minimizes the game, mutes it as well, and maximizes the webcam with a Star Trek Red Alert animation going on behind it. So awooga, boobies. Hide from the boobies, or rather hide the boobies, and hopefully I'll never have to use it, you know, or consider using it again. But it was it was frustrating that day because we'd had such a good live stream and such interesting interactions and comments and questions, and then to have, I mean, the thing is, it's an 18 game, and I had made it very, you know, obviously when you start up the live stream you had to say this is not made for kids or whatever, so I've made it very clear, but for some reason the game's content, well, not for some reason, again, I do acknowledge it's perfectly reasonable not to have very graphic sex noises suddenly appearing on your platform. But yeah, there was just no warning. Out of nowhere, suddenly our Henry was getting an education, shall we say. Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of getting there. And again, it's one of those things where you know, because I can't get rid of the print lines completely on his body. I think it helps. I think it's starting to sort of break that up and become a bit more, yeah. Never mind all the murder, thieving, swearing. There were some nipples. Well, to be fair, there were nipples. There was a fully naked person. Yeah, and in the background, someone was otherwise engaged. I wonder what the mocap for that was. That's a whole other realm of awkwardness, isn't it, at work? Okay, so we just need, yes, thank you. Speaking of which, things continue to look really not great for Ubisoft at the moment. Um, all the stuff that's coming out, and not even as coming out. I mean, it's been around for years, but that's now seemingly becoming unignorable for the company. And that whole thing of, I suppose the thing I don't quite understand about some aspects of what in particular. So, if you watch the Jim Sterling's videos at the moment, he's clearly really spearheading the cause. Yes, exactly. Yeah, Jim Sterling's videos precisely. It's stuff like having meetings, having work meetings in a strip club. I just don't understand. I don't get it. And so at that point, my lovely wife will say, "Well, that's one of the many reasons that I love you, Mark." She'll say, you just don't understand these people, these sorts of people." But I genuinely, I just don't get it. I don't understand why on earth would you, no matter what you enjoy doing in your personal time, in your personal life, why would you do that? Why would you make other people go to the strip club with you? Unless it's coercive control, essentially, some form of oh yeah, I'm the big boss, and you're going to do what I say. Or it could be that cocaine cowboy malarkey that Jim was mentioning. Maybe they literally thought that GTA, not Las Vegas, GTA, the one after GTA 3, the one that's basically Scarface. Unless they thought that was literally the way to live and to show your success and wealth and business. What's the word? Business prowess. Vice City. That's it. Vice City. It's basically Miami, isn't it? That's it. It's essentially set in a version of Miami. I don't know. I really don't understand. And yet it's these sorts of displays of power that seemingly are relatively common. The sheer number of women who and men, frankly, who suffer under this sort of management regime. It's just not funny. All for entertainment's sake. It's definitely. I was already leaning away from the prospect of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's definitely made it clear to me that I don't want. Just not interested in giving that company my money at the moment. And that's not to say that all products have to be associated with morally perfect, ethically beyond reproach company behaviours. I mean, if right down to say how money is handled at companies and the way it's reinvested. You could spend all day worrying about they didn't source their toilet paper in a environmentally responsible way and so on and so forth. I recognise that there are limits on purchasing things and expecting any completely beyond reproach ethics and morals behind it. But and this is something that we've just discussed previously in the form of things like crunch. The thing is, I don't expect any form of entertainment that I enjoy to have come about through the manifest discomfort or the essentially the bullying or the harassment of other people. No form of entertainment is worth it. Now the thing is, at the same time, it's well known that at the high end of lots of performance art, for example. Suffering is just part of it. Ballerinas suffer for their art. But at the same time, making a computer game is not should not be as demanding from individuals as being, for example, a head of the the Russian National Ballet or something, or one of the key performers there. Good management and realistic time frames should make it so that people can work and live and love in a reasonable way and still get the product made and out. But yeah, so absolutely, it's just not possible to have fully perfectly ethically sourced everything, because even if you do your absolute level best, at some point there's going to be someone somewhere in this chain of events that will be someone, even if it's just someone skimming off the top, that's become clear in the case of the Leicester sweatshops, hasn't it? It was an open secret in the British fashion industry that in Leicester they could make clothes at a they could outbid anyone because they were basically paying people a pittance, and that's just not something that people, well, on the one hand, lots of people consider to be something that would happen in this country, in so much as it tends to be, sweatshops in India or something. It's what you think of. But also as well, it's unfortunately lots of the customers, for example, your Primark customers, this kind of thing, really kind of don't care. What they want is the £3 T-shirt or whatever. It's a complicated web, and also in that sense, I imagine lots of people, lots of the end users of computer games kind of don't care either. And in that sense, I recognise that I'm unusual as a gamer in actually caring about how the game was made. It's just studios, publishers chasing the coin and infinite growth. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and the myth that you can continue to grow your company and have more profits every year is just that. It's a myth. I've forgotten who said it. I always forget who said it. But there's an economist, a philosopher who said that anyone who believes in infinite growth in a finite universe is either insane or they're an economist. And I think they're right. And I was talking to an archaeology professor from California on the internet the other day, and she was saying how she had been sat next to an economist as a graduation ceremony, and she was like, you've got to get your head around the infinite growth, man. And he was like, what do you mean? And then she sort of laid it out. You can't have infinite growth. It's just not possible. And he was like, "Oh, he wasn't ready to hear it." But I mean, the whole thing of hiring and firing, using the staff as the variable that can be trimmed down at the end of a game production and before any bonuses are paid out, only to then rehire them for the next game production. It's not good. And the thing is, in the US in particular, once you then start talking about unionization, then you're accused of being a socialist or a communist or something, being anti-business. It's like no, I'm just pro-human. A lot of people can't afford to pay the extra. This is true. Yeah. Well, frankly, I can scarcely afford to pay the extra. But I guess if everyone got paid their fair wage, we wouldn't need as many £2 T-shirts. So that's a very good point. There's been speculation in recent weeks that the Chancellor of the Exchequer may have to basically give everyone like £500 to go and spend on something. It was a suggestion put out by a think tank, and I think it might be a good idea. If you want to get get the ball moving, and also, and maybe if you said, look, it has to be electronics or clothing, or don't just spend it on booze, or something like that. That said, though, spending it in a cafe or a restaurant at the moment would be welcome, wouldn't it? Definitely. Anyway, it's more or less dry now, and I think you can definitely see a bit more of the contrast in the highs and the lows on his body, which is good. So yeah, I'm happy with that so far. Now comes the rope, and the rope in the kit. The rope in the kit was very particular. It had well, it was thick. It was a thin black piece of rope. Let's see. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. It was this thin black rope, which I didn't really like because it was. I mean, it's to scale, but I figured as soon as you paint it and then try and bend it or tie it, it's going to the colour's going to flake off or something like that. So I went to Hobbycraft and bought some slightly thicker gauge rope. Well, sorry, rope. String. Which I think will look quite good on this thing. And the only question really is how is it tied to the specifically how is it tied to the cross? So I suppose what we need to do is take a look at. Let's take a look at the Etsy store listing. So let's make that image larger. Okay, so it looks like there's sort of like almost like an X shape. Tying sort of around the forearm and the wrists there, and then around just above the feet on this version. Oh, also as well, notice that on the print, just above his head, there's just basically a black space before it reaches the gold sort of flowery bit, whereas on my piece, what I've actually done is I've added three diamond pieces just here. Oh, hang on. Come on, where are you? There you are. 3 pieces just there. 4, sorry, pieces just there, which is actually accurate to the game model. It wasn't included in the print, but it just sort of sits just behind his head, just there. So again, I'm trying to be as accurate as I can to the original. But yeah, so it's like a crisscross, and then I wonder if it's going to be possible to actually tie it off as well, or if I'm going to have to use glue potentially. Shame you don't have the game open to check the in-game model. Well, actually, I did do. Let's just go back to the browser. I did do a search for Saint Dismas Cross. Saint Dismas Cross. Uncharted 4. And there's interestingly, it's surprisingly difficult to come across really good reference images. This is, I think, constructed by someone else. This isn't actually a game reference image. Interestingly, though, this is quite accurate in so much as what I've noticed is that in the in-game model, because at the end of the game, Cassie, you can sort of pick up the model and have a look at it in her hand. In the in-game model, it's clear actually that these details, those 4 squares, are actually painted on. they're not raised as they are in the 3D print. But I guess the thing is, the 3D print had to the same goes actually for the letters on the back of the thing. They're painted on, they're not engraved. But the 3D print had to give you something to work with in terms of identifying where that stuff was. So that isn't quite right as the game model. Let's have a look. If we go back, Saint Dismas Cross, Uncharted. Yeah, Uncharted 4. Oh, that can't be reached. Oh, that's a shame. Can we go to the website itself, not just to the image? Maybe he's trying to limit. Concept artist at Insomniac Games. Interesting. So maybe this actually is. Oh, this must be concept art because the rats. Can we make it any bigger? There we go. Because the writing on the back is not right yet. You know, sort of clearly in development, and the filigree on the cross is gold, is the same color as Dismas, whereas in the so the edging rather, whereas in the game the edging is silver with these sort of 4 squares at the terminal points. Nothing above the head here though. Interesting. Maybe our Etsy store guy based his 3D print on a 3D model from the game concept perhaps. But again, we have the X crisscross around the forearm and 3 strands around the feet there. Okay, so I think we have something to go on. Right, let's just. Oh, so it's going to be interesting. Oh. Now, maybe, I mean, I think I would like to try and do this without using glue, if it's possible. So I'll just take off this plastic bit on the end of the thing. Oh no, that was I got that wrong. Oops. I'll trim it. La la la. There we go. That's better. And what I might do is make a little lasso loop, perhaps. Just let me look at the time there. Cool. Oh, the times are here on the computer. Duh. Muppet. And presumably the artists, some artists, you'll probably have some key artists, I guess, who will be, you know, Naughty Dog staples, and then there'll be other people who will be freelance and go from job to job, I guess. So having a website where you can highlight your work must be very useful. But again, that's not particularly conducive to maintaining high workplace standards, is it? If this notion of you can be hired or fired and replaced with another freelancer at any moment. Okay, so that's, yeah, put number 1 and then bring this end up through here. Oop. And I kind of don't. I like the idea of this actually being a physical rope that I'm tying off. I don't actually mind if it's got a bit more bulk because of the knot in the back than it otherwise might do. Nice. Okay. Now, how do we? That's a good question. How do we finish that bit? Hmm. Maybe I need to rethink that. I just... pull this through. Good morning, Mackenzie. Nice to see you. I'm just tying Saint Dismas to his cross, finalising his fate. There we go. Let's trim that again, I think. Doo-doo-doo. So maybe if I run the whole thing through first and then think about tying it off. So that goes through the back. And then over this side of the arm. There we go. I want to cross on the cross, like so. And then I could think about tying it back here. Actually, tying it on his wrist. That's pretty good, actually. That could work well. Let's cut these guys. Let's see. That's quite a lot of excess, that. A lot of excess. There you go, that'll do. Yep. I like it a lot. Trim that there. The trusty 25-year-old. 25-year-old? Yeah, 25-year-old flush clippers there. Games Workshop classic stuff for the win. So here, I guess we can tie this like so. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, I think that's working. This question, was there a saint who was crucified upside down? There was, I believe, that was Saint Peter, who was crucified upside down on an X as well, X-shaped cross, because he did not want to be crucified in the same orientation as his Lord, and also his good friend as well. Supposedly Peter, in that sense, was a very good friend of Jesus. Whoop, 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 whoop. Either way, though, crucifixion is a horrible way to die. I'm not sure I'd want to do it the right way up or upside down. Then again, who does? Who would? It's a bit Monty Python, isn't it? The whole crucifixion. Are you here for the crucifixion? Okay, pick up your cross, go through the door there. Crucifixion? No, freedom. Yeah, they made a mistake. Oh, they made a mistake. Oh, that's very unusual. Okay, well, off you go. It's lovely. But I think Michael Palin said he imagined that character was just a lovely man who would just happen to have the job of sorting people out on the way out to be crucified. Of course, in real history, the people who were involved in that sort of punishment were, well, I don't think they really had a word for psychopath in Roman times, but they were basically the people who were too violent to be in the Roman army, in the regular army. There we go. Yay, nice. So then they were put on execution duty, so they could get all of their nasty and vicious and cruel habits out of their system in a way that wouldn't hurt the general population. So yes, I definitely would not like to have been crucified. Not least because I'd be like, oh no, you're a psychopath. What would you call me? Nothing. And then they'd go even harder on me. No, I got that bit wrong. Okay, it needs to loop. Ow! I dropped the string. Oh. Can we pick it up with this? There we go. If I got crucified, to quote Life of Brian, just look on the bright side of life. If you had the presence of mind to quote the Life of Brian, I'd be very impressed. I'd be like, yep, fair dues. Always look on the bright side of life. Yeah, essentially, what crucifixion does to you is it suffocates you. It makes it so that you can't breathe, and you drown in your own bodily fluids after a while. It's not very nice. But of course, as is hinted at, I mean, this is where actually the crucifixion story is quite interesting, as a reference to for that sort of form of punishment, because as they reference in the story, quite often they wouldn't, they wouldn't let people get to the point of drowning naturally. Instead, they would break their legs so they couldn't support themselves and therefore couldn't breathe. Because if you stretch someone's arms out on a cross, or on anything, frankly, it builds up lactic acid in the chest. It tightens and causes cramps and muscle spasms, and makes it really, really hard to breathe. Not least as well in the context of having to decide how and where you want to support your body weight, because obviously for the most part normally you've been nailed to the thing. So do you want to put your body weight on your feet via a nail? Do you want to put it on your wrists via nails? You really can see why it was a form of execution used by the Romans that was designed to make a point. You're designed to sort of to say to other people, you don't want this to happen to you, do you? Behave, be good people, pay your taxes, don't question the emperor. And normally they would commit. They would do these executions on public roads in and out of a city as well, so everyone would see as they arrived. Be good, don't steal, don't murder, just do your business and leave. Otherwise, you'll end up like these poor souls. quite like. I mean, I quite like it. The way this is looking. I mean, not the idea of crucifixion. There we go. Oh, that's a bit. It's a little bit loose. That one. See if we can. The thing is, though, is that this is with it being a 3D printed arm, I don't want to snap off the hand by applying too much pressure to the knot. So I'll leave it there for now. Trim off some of that excess. There we go. Oh, come on. So fiddly. Just before you. There we go. Your terminal breath. Of course, that's probably copyrighted music, isn't it? Don't want to risk being flagged now. Hey, 2 exhibits, sexy exhibits. I mean, the camera is not entirely clear on the camera how this is looking compared to how when I started, but it's in person. It's looking quite good. And I think this is part of the joy of mucking about with 3D printed kits, is trying to get something that doesn't look like it's 3D printed, you know. Could you not maybe unravel the string and just use one of the threads so it's not as thick? Potentially. I mean, let's have a look. I mean, yeah, it does come apart like that. Thing is, I kind of like the fact that it does look like double twisted rope, and it is sort of to scale as well. It's just the tying of the knots at the back is a little bit of a hassle. I'll keep it like this for now, but I can always separate it out if we change our mind, as it were. Wouldn't birds start eating people who were crucified, who weren't dead yet? Yes, that could happen. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think we'll lose the nice twisty rope effect. Yeah. I think the twisty rope effect is good. Yeah, we'll keep it like that for now. Yes. Yeah. They would. And also as well, the thing is as well is that if you have a set place for executions and hanging of dead people, thinking about gibbets as well in this country, frankly, highwaymen would be hung and gibbeted, wouldn't they? You know, animals learn where they're likely to get, be able to have a nibble, as it were. So you would have creatures waiting in anticipation, which isn't particularly pleasant, is it? So I need to tie it's around about here, just above the ankle, and it goes, interestingly, yeah, just over there. Actually, not too far from one of my painted on wooden exposed bits. That's quite nice. It's almost like the rope is exposed, has worn away at some of the paint. Yeah, cool. And there were three. It was three strands of that. So let's see what we can do. Just me. I've got that song stuck in my head now. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Oh, I like it. Nice. So now, let's just trim this. Oh, sorry. Trim this here. There we go. I mean, what I might do is I might put a dab of glue on some key parts of the rope just to reinforce it when we're done. But it would be nice if we could have, if it looked as clean as possible. Oh, okay. Let's just check. Check out that's the. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh, that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted when we're tying someone to cross. What a nice triple layered little bit over the feet there. That's a bit lower though than. Oh, I think that slipped a little bit. Oh no, it slipped. Yeah. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I think we're okay. And then I'll just do a double knot here at the back. Very simple. Yeah, the simplest of knots really, because it's not like this is a naval operation or anything. You know, knots is something which I've recently tried. Yeah, I want to learn more about. I've got a book of knots in the office, and it came with its own rope to practice on as well. I think I was watching. Very good. I like it. I was watching Tested a little while ago, and Adam Savage was. Oh no, the whole thing's slipped there. Oh, actually, no, that's okay. That's okay. It slipped. That dig. Is that over a letter? Yeah, it is over a letter. There we go. You know, just thinking when Jesus got betrayed by Judas and then crucified, that's why Shaw called a double cross. Oh dear. I do get it. So yeah, I think maybe a little bit of glue here and there just to. Oh. A vast just caught a nasty bug. Yeah, a little bit of glue just to make sure it doesn't travel too far. Might be in order. But all in all, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have ended up with something quite nice here. Going to hell for that joke. You know, it's interesting actually. I mean, let's just go down the hypothetical route of that being a possibility. Something that I've always found interesting and quite amusing is getting crucified by the end of the day. Depends how bad your jokes are, Mackenzie. Depends how bad your jokes are. But it seems that that there were puns built into parts of the Bible. You know, Peter himself is Great reference from Mark's model if you do. Exactly, get someone to send a photo. That'd be great. Peter Petros Rock. This whole notion of upon this rock I will build my church. That's a pun. Peter Petros Greek is Greek for rock. And I've always found that quite pleasing. The notion of if you do bump into someone who's going to judge whether or not you go to hell, they're going to do it with puns. I think I would almost accept that. But yeah, nice solid pun as you get damned for all eternity. So that's a little bit of glue just here and just here. Hopefully it'll soak in. Won't be too obvious. And if needs be, I can always go over it with a little touch of gold paint. I think. There we go. And then a little bit of glue on the wrist. And the knot just here. And a little bit of glue. Just here. Yeah. Get a photo. Leave a note next to your cross, just saying please email this photo to, or at me on Twitter or something. And yeah, it'll be great. I'll have some prime reference material. That, I think, is quite canny. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And it's funny because essentially I was sort of of two minds of whether I wanted to stream Half-Life 2 or finishing Dismas's Cross first this week. And then it occurred to me I can't wait. So I needed to. I was so close to having this finished, and also frankly just sharing that experience. I figured I would do this first. So maybe on Friday afternoon. I think I should have some time. Looking at my work schedule, I should be able to do the Half-Life 2 live stream then. And also, if I can figure out what YouTube's done to its streaming setup with the whole go live button, because that's going to make things really awkward as well. So starting a computer game in a separate window, if the moment you start the stream you're live. I mean, yeah. Anyway, put that on there. Et voilà. C'est magnifique. C'est Saint Dismas on his cross. I like it. And finally, I have something which I can take a photo of for my feedback on Etsy and be like, oh, well, I did my best. It's okay. It's not too bad. Oh, dear. So funny, actually. But Mrs. My lovely wife, she's very competitive herself. And it's funny how we both don't necessarily want to be competitive people, but we're both incredibly competitive people. And living with someone who's as competitive as you just means that, well, first of all, you both have to learn to take losses a bit more. But also, it means that, like, yeah, your hypocrisy when you go, oh, I'm not competitive, I'm not, is laid bare. Nice work. Thank you, Beck. I am happy with that. There's a couple of little finishing touches I might do. I might just, touch up some of the textures. I might just do a little bit of highlighting work with possibly with a fine gold permanent marker on some of the raised parts of Saint Dismas here, because actually, I don't know if there you go. Again, the light is it's a bit difficult to get the light to look as it looks in real life. Is that better? Yeah, maybe. You can see he looks a little bit dirty without the light. So, ooh, excuse me. So maybe a little bit of highlighting work, just to contrast that a bit more, could be good. Better. No, I like it. Cool. And just in time, more or less, for that time of day when I have to go and think about making tea. It's been a good live stream. I think it's beautiful. Don't worry about Saint Dismas. You won't be crossed out of our lives. Oh God. You see, puns. They're delicious, aren't they? They're delightfully discoverable, I think, in daily life. I often think I have a bit of a disease, puns just come to me with alarming regularity. But yeah, and actually, just I suppose one more thing that I would say before we end this is just to say that there's something really nice about taking something that is essentially bits of plastic and painting it to the point at which you sort of start to forget what it's made of. I had a very similar experience when I painted the Mal's gun from Firefly, which I think is, I think I did a video not about painting it but about that gun on this YouTube channel a couple of years ago now. But when you paint it and you take it through that process and it starts to sort of look like other materials, like composite materials in particular, lots of different materials, or at the very least it's because of that, even just for a moment you forget that it's actually a 3D printed piece of plastic. That's really satisfying. I really enjoy that kind of thing, and I'm going to continue to enjoy it. Also, I'm thinking, just between you and I'm thinking of actually taking making to into other realms. I'm thinking of maybe trying to make sculptures or do small scale making that maybe I could either put on Etsy or something else. Small props, etc. in the future. So and hopefully it'll never get to a point where making isn't fun, but it'd be nice to be able to sort of put some of these skills to use and make a little bit of money on the side. A little bit of an income would be nice from this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's been fun. It's called art. When you make something from what most people call nothing, you come to really appreciate it. I think so. I think you're right. And also actually in so many ways, this sort of thing, in that sense, yes, you appreciate it more. You can walk someone through the whole process of what's gone into making it, and hopefully everyone involved comes to a greater appreciation of exactly what's gone on, and yeah. And I just love the fact that this on a shelf, I really do think that actually it wouldn't be immediately obvious what it's made out of. I like it. So clearly this is going to go on the same shelf as my Indiana Jones collection, without a doubt. Definitely. Cool. So there we have it, guys. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a real fun experience trying to finish this weathering and just again take it that last 10%. And now comes the joy in this new YouTube setup of trying to actually end the stream. So let's see what we can do. If we go to here, because there is no end stream button anymore for some reason, just bonkers, and we go, I think, to there. No, how do we end the stream? we just have to end it in OBS now, presumably. I mean, that's a really clunky way of doing it, but okay. Well, guys, as ever. But I just got here. You surely can't just leave me hanging. Oh, hanging here. Oh God. You know, just for that, I'm leaving. No, it's been a real pleasure, guys. Yeah, and well, as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.